Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast on aging and spirituality. As we age, there's so many beautiful things that can happen. So let's be open to bringing more light and love into our lives.
Absolutely.
So today, I'm Chris Jensen, by the way, and
I'm Kathy Taylor.
so we're gonna share with you just like we would normally share with each other. We help each other all the time on the paths, and we're going to share with you. So we hope this is very helpful to you too. So what we want to talk about today is when it's not perfect. We get on a spiritual path, or maybe not. Maybe you're just making progress and you're getting very centered and things are going well, and you're thinking, this is great. I'm doing all the right things, and it seems like you're growing and moving forward. And then all of a sudden, you're back where you were before you started doing it. You're back. You're back, and you feel the old feelings, maybe the old angst, the old fear, and you wonder, what's happening? What am I doing? And it's very typical for people to feel like, oh, I failed, I'm not doing it, or I can't do this, or maybe I'm not going to succeed. And those attitudes don't help us. So I'm wondering, what helps you? What is it that helps you if you ever get like that?
Oh gosh, are you kidding? I mean, if anybody's following this cast from week to week, you remember last week where I was. She's describing me where I was last week. And I want you to know, I have to say this to people all the time. Chris and I are people that have been studying yoga since 1970.
Yeah.
Okay. So just because you are like a yoga practitioner, we call ourselves yogis because we do try to do it as much as we possibly can to the best of our ability, right? But that does not mean that life stops throwing crap at you. It does. It continues to throw it at you. And literally you find out who you are and you grow from a space of how you respond to what's going on in the world. So last week I was really fried in talking about how my heart had just been, wiped out and just overwhelmed by all of the things that are going on in the world, which is not the first time for me. That's something I've experienced many times. My yoga path, different from Chris's, has been learning really about surrender and learning about how to live from a heart space. Because when I first came to the yoga center, I was very much in my mind, in my third eye. I was very will centered. I just had to, put my will to it and I could get the job done. But unfortunately, that didn't lead me to a very fulfilled state of being. That also didn't lead me to understanding who I was in any way. So for me, I had to learn to surrender. And I still have to learn to surrender. It's a principle that I have to pull out of my back pocket in my yoga toolkit all the time. So yes, what she's saying is so true. You can fall off the path just even a little bit. Sometimes it feels like you're walking a tight wire and just your toe falls off. But sometimes you fall right down into the frickin' Niagara Falls. And you're drowning. And you got to find a way back. Am I right?
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, it happens to everybody. I remember one guy in one of our classes, and he had left, and he sent me an email and he said, I just was doing fine. And then all of a sudden it was not good and I couldn't do it. And I felt like I'd failed. And then I started blaming the teachers and the practices.
Of course.
And he went down that trail. And then he said, and now he said, I realized I just kind of fell off. And, but the thing is to try and get back on. And like you said, one of the things that I like to talk about is you have to accept yourself where you are. In yoga, it's called the state of contentment.
That's critical. It's
very critical. And so when you're in that place, what do you do to, that you're off center, okay? Something's really thrown you. I mean, no matter how much we're on the spiritual path, there'll always be stresses around us. We're just trying to stay centered in them. So what is it that you do when you realize that? I mean, how do you get to the place where you accept yourself where you are so you can move forward?
Okay, that means it's not always easy. Sometimes I can see it clearly, and it's just a little tweak back into feeling good. But oftentimes what's happening is I've got a story going on about myself that I'm not comfortable with. I have to look at the fact that I didn't handle something well. I've got some kind of a character issue that needs to be dealt with. I remember when I first came in being very arrogant, like really arrogant. I knew what the whole world was about, and I could solve any problems and answer any of your dang questions. And who needs you? You know, like
And some.
so yeah, many years. Chris is laughing because she's been with me through those years. But yes, many years I was dealing with stuff like that. But really, I think like the question you're asking is that in order to get back to center, one of the first things I have to do is get back into a place of self-love, self-care. You know, what's going on with you? It's okay. You know, if the little girl inside of you is screaming, just pat her on the head, tell her it's going to be okay, give her a hug, let her know you love her, and then get back to getting back into a very centered place. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yes. Yeah. That's that point. That's the pivot point, because you can go down the trail and keep going down that trail, the negative trail, if you start beating up on yourself.
Right.
It's kind of like you stub your toe, and if you start calling yourself a jerk in your mind, you know, I like to think, what would I say to somebody else at this time, you know?
Right. What would I say to somebody else? I beat myself up and let my ego strangle me, you know, like that. But for somebody else, I would be very kind and loving.
Right. So your point about the self-love, I think that's so important, because that's the only way we're going to get back on track. And also just knowing that it happens to everybody.
Yes.
It's just a normal part of the path.
Yes.
And, you know, as you're growing, growth isn't linear. I mean, you know, we go 5 steps forward, we go 2 steps back. I mean, do you experience that?
All the time. And you know, it's really interesting because we've been doing this, like I said, since Chris 1970, me about 1982 or so. But we've known each other a long time, and we've had a lot of these conversations, which is why, you know, getting on a cast and talking about this stuff seemed like a really natural thing to do, because we've really helped each other through so many of these things. And I even the other day was thinking about our next generation of young people that are coming up, and they're talking about spiritual awakening. What does that mean? You know, like, I mean, I have my ideas because I've had certain personal experiences with spirit, and it's transformed me in different ways and stuff. Well, what are they talking about when they're talking about spiritual awakening? You know, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. We need to also be open to different experiences and different ways of going forward. Like, for example, I shared with you not too long ago that I'm very much a heart-centered person. And then, you know, things changed and started moving to the higher centers. And for me, it was like a fish out of water. I mean, it's good that the energy's up there. I know.
But it felt different.
It felt different. It felt different than what I was used to, you know?
Okay.
So that to me was unnerving.
Okay, wait. So don't just jump over that, because that could be something that might help somebody who's listening. So you came in as a heart-centered person versus somebody like me, very will-centered. I mean, the girl was born on Valentine's Day, so that tells a lot. She just dropped in on Valentine's Day.
Right.
So when you're awakening and your energy started to move, you're saying it went into the upper centers. What did that feel like? Like, how did you relate to that?
Well, initially it was like, am I off track here? What's going on?
Where's my heart?
Where is it? What's going on? Am I going backwards? Am I doing something wrong? I went through that whole kind of unnerving process about that.
Right.
And, you know, and I said, well, you know, but it is in these other centers. You know, I was trying to rationalize it, didn't particularly help. And then you and I talked about it a little bit, and that was very helpful to me, because verbalizing it to you, and you were saying, well, you know, your energy is just moving on, you know, it's moving, and that was very helpful. And then I do a class where we play a audio of Ramakrishnananda teaching from some Tuesday night, our classes or seminars. And he happened to very specifically mention in there, which is you
I just happened to.
very specifically, he said, now, for example, if you are a heart-centered person who's used to having, more bhava type experiences, he said, at some point your energy is going to go to the third eye and the sahasrara, and that's a good thing, it's
Supposed to happen.
it's going to go there, and so that started to settle me down. Okay, it's not familiar,
Right.
but it's good.
But it's good.
And I try, and now I'm trying to go with it instead of like.
So wait, so at this point of your spiritual practice, you're still, I don't mean still, but I mean your part of your practice is focusing on how that energy is moving up and moving into the crown chakra. So when you meditate, your energy is really high.
Yeah, I'm just letting it go where it goes. I'm not trying to refocus in the heart.
Right.
I'm just trying to let it go wherever it goes, and just trying to go with that, to just go with it, go with that experience.
Feels very expansive.
Yeah, it's expansive, and I feel it's not like I thought I wasn't going to feel as centered or loving or whatever, but it's not true.
Right.
I feel more centered,
Right.
but
you feel more centered.
Yeah.
So
that still occasionally, even though occasionally I'll slip back,
mm-hmm.
and I'll say, wait a minute, where's that heart-centered stuff,
Right.
But then I'll get a little tinkle, it'll be like, oh yeah, it's still there.
Well, okay, so let me just throw this out. It is what you're talking about, the difference between really having a form or a formless experience. Like when I think about being in my heart, it feels like a form. It feels like, oh, that's a warm fuzzy. And I can think about beautiful creatures that have been on the planet, Christ and Buddha and all these gorgeous creatures that have been on the planet, and that really their message was all about love, just, unconditional divine love. A formless kind of experience is like a very expansive, but you kind of can't wrap your arms around it so much, right? Like, right. What is that like?
You're putting your finger on it. Yeah, I can't wrap my arms around it, and that's why it was disorienting to me.
Yes,
it was disorienting.
Would be to me too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was disorienting, and so at that moment in time, surrender, like you said, surrender was absolutely the key.
Yeah.
The only choice I have is to surrender to what's happening.
Well, but here's the interesting question though. When I surrender, I can still come back to my body anytime I want and sense being inside my body. I think I might freak out if I couldn't do that. If I was like out there somewhere and I couldn't get like a focal point, you know what I mean? Like that?
Well, that's part of the problem, because I keep bringing it back. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I really know the next step is more to try to just flow with things.
Flow with the surrender and let it go.
Yeah,
Don't try to
surrender rather than trying to constantly
right.
bring back. When I first started doing yoga, and I had a lot of that energy moving, and I went to see Ramakrishna Ananda. He was teaching regularly, and he was checking people's meditations and their practices. And so he was watching me, and he laughed, and he said, well, you've got lots of energy moving. He said, but because that's happening, he said, you don't know what to do with it. So your body's literally going like this, trying to stop it. And he said, you got to surrender to it. He said, you're not going to die. It's going to be a blissful experience.
Right.
You got to surrender to it. And so I have that tendency.
Yeah.
And so just talking with you as we did, and we are now, it's very helpful, because I realized that I just have to surrender to it.
Right. Yeah, being able as a yogis to talk back and forth. We've said this many times over our journey on this on this path, to have people who are like-minded is so critical, because you really do feel like you're losing your mind sometimes, and that's a good thing. It could be, but you kind of have to have reassurances that you're still in this body, you're still walking, on the path, kind of thing. It's very important. But anyway, I'm crazy about this subject, but we were talking about how to get back to being centered. In your case, it's a much higher experience. In my case, with working with my heart, and when I fall off my center, my heart, I can tell. I'll give this as an example for people that maybe do the same thing that I do. When I first came in, and I've already said this a few times, that I'm will centered. When I fall out of being in my heart space, it's almost like an automatic switch, go back to being very will centered. And I can tell that it's happened now, because somebody will say something like, "Oh, you intimidate people." Somebody will say, "You intimidate me," and in my mind I'm thinking, I'm a 4'11" little chick. How is that possible that I'm intimidating you? It doesn't make any sense. It always like surprised me. Like, are you serious? But now when I hear those words, I go, "Oh, I must have slipped up and went back to being will centered," because I can be, like adamant. I can be very, strong in my sense of this is the right way to go. I tend to be a leader in situations where people don't want to step up and be the leader. So I'll be just like run out front and go, "Okay, come this way," that kind of thing. Yeah. And in that way, I can be very strong and come from a will-centered space. So for me, when I see that happening, I go, "Okay, I got to get back on the soft path, back on the heart path, back on the being more open and receptive," which is very much, female characteristics, right? Female feminine tendencies, like when you're in business, which I've been my whole life, you see a lot of women who act like men. Mm. They're living in a male dominated world. It's not their fault. Right. They're trying to keep up. They're trying to act like guys so they can make enough the same money, and they can run in the same circles and have the same high powered jobs. I know, I played that game. It is not fun at all. Being a female and being creative on a level that takes expression from your heart and all your lower centers, where you make the babies in the second, and all those grounding centers. Mm-hmm. Being that feminine quality is so much more productive and creative. Really, I don't know how we got on that subject, but we were talking about staying on the spiritual path. But that's what happens to me when I fall off.
Yeah, well, I found too, like during this process, and it does happen, like, when there's a disorientation, like I said, you take steps forward and a step back. I felt there were days where I felt like I thought, "Oh my God, this is how I felt like I was when I was a teenager, unsure and fearful," which was not my normal MO, but I could see it. I could see that was my old self, and I sure didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. And, I just had to keep moving on. And I remembered very clearly what Ramakrishna said, where when he was first studying yoga, and he had like 3 dry days when his meditation.
Three dry days.
Something ridiculous like that.
Oh, like, please.
Right. So he took out his yoga notebook, and he kept doing technique after technique after technique. And he did like 60 techniques until something worked.
Right. Okay.
And, that's real intensity to go forward. But that's, we don't have to do 60 techniques. But the thing is, when we do feel like that, to pick ourselves up, to not say, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm not going to be successful. This isn't for me. There's something wrong with the techniques." The thing is to say, "Okay, this is normal. I've, fallen off here. Now, what am I going to do to get back?"
Right. Right. So perfect spot to give people listening tips on what do I do to get right back on that rope.
Yeah. That's the trick. What do I do? Okay, I'll tell you what.
What do you do? Yeah, I'll share what I do.
Yeah, I try to go to whatever it is that has worked best for me, whatever
Right.
technique I've done. And, sometimes if if I sit to meditate and I'm feeling like that and it's not right, it's really better for me to do some postures and savasana, just like a deep relaxation, and then come to it, or I do the practice, the Sahaj practice. This works a lot for me. Uh, Things are jittery and not right. And I will you want to shed desires, fears, aversions, attractions. And I'll just try to shed them just for a few minutes. And as in the process of shedding them, it will help to refocus me. It'll help to get me back.
Okay, well, that was fabulous. And it's probably out ahead of what some of the beginner listeners are used to being able to do. So I'm going to throw in here, when I fall off and want to get back right away, the first thing is being aware that I fell off.
Absolutely.
Your emotional guidance system will tell you every time you're off
You're off.
path, right?
Like it was telling me, you feel like you're a teenager. It's horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not in a loving space, if you're not in a place of gratitude, place of faith, you're experiencing anger or any of those things, your missile system is telling you you're off target. And so you want to stop and you want to listen inside. What is really going on? See if you can identify it. And if you can't, I just let the energy go by calming my mind. And I have 101 ways to calm my mind at this point because I meditated for as long as I have. But for beginning listeners who are trying to calm their mind, there's certainly apps out there that will help you do that. Listening to rain coming down on an app sometimes will just calm your mind right down. Listening to a beach, ocean waves will help people. Some people who are very turned into nature can just listen to birds chirping, and that'll calm their mind right down. There's 101 ways to be able to just calm your mind down, and that's the first trick. Because as long as the reason we call it monkey mind is it's like one monkey jumping from one tree to the next. Thought. You're never going to get anywhere, on a spiritual level. So you got to calm the monkey mind down. So if you can get into a calmer, more meditative state, that is absolutely the first place to go. And then you can open your heart, open your lower chakras, and be more receptive of spirit coming in and helping, taking over, making you more centered in who you are.
And to know that it may not work the first time. You may be doing all that and you're not getting there. And you just have to keep going at it like Ramakrishnananda did, with intensity and with repetition. Just keep trying, keep going forward, because it doesn't always work immediately. And at Yoga Center of California, we teach a lot of different meditation techniques because everybody's different.
It's different.
What works for Kathy may not work for me. It may not work for any of you, but
So
there is something. There's like
so true. And why you teach so many different pranayama classes, because they're all for different situations and different times and different ways that you're feeling, but they're all very powerful. So it's good to learn them all.
Yeah. And so, you pick and choose. Like I find, here's the thing I mentioned before, I'm very much a heart-centered person. That means the way I meditate is in relationship. But when things are really off for me and I'm stressed, it's better for me to try and experience everything, as more of a oneness kind of thing.
As a oneness?
Oneness, yes.
So get into a unity consciousness first.
Yeah, seeing everything as part of the one. And, it doesn't mean you have to have an experience of oneness. It means you just kind of sit there and you just try to sense that your thoughts, your feelings, everything around you is part of that one.
Right.
That helps me because it's a step out of what I normally do. What I normally do is working. So, that's another way to go.
The other thing is, if you're in the process of trying to let go of thoughts and emotions and stuff, and you just find you're too chaotic, look at what's going on in your body. You're probably holding stress, right? I mean, that's why every yoga class we do starts out with postures. you're taking the time to pay attention to what your body's telling you that it's been through during the whole dang day. And it would like you to know that right now your shoulders are completely tense and your your hips are out of alignment and all of these things need to be relaxed and let go of. And it's not going to stop until you pay attention to it. That I can tell you for sure. Anybody who's gotten into an older body is like knows that it will not be ignored.
But that's the thing. I mean, the older we get, the more we need things like the
To
posture.
release the
For
stress.
example, the idea is to really, the real reason for doing them is to release the tension in our bodies
Right.
so that
That's
we
exactly
can
right.
go further, so we can meditate, so we can open ourselves. I mean, I think it's a great thing. Even if you have time to do just a few, you'll find, and you may not think you have tension in your body, but I remember when I started yoga, I was like this. And
Yep.
I didn't
Yep.
realize till I got there that, I was carrying all that tension in my shoulders, but it's such a freedom, and we
No
have
doubt.
lots of classes and videos that are all free on our website. So,
To do
try,
postures to let go.
yeah,
Yeah.
try out the Yoga Center's website and just, I mean, not that we're promoting anything because it's all free. You can just try it out and see if that's helpful for you.
If that's helpful for you. It was one of the first things I heard. I remember coming to the yoga center because I think he said something like, it's not because you're older that you start to curve over like that. It's because you're holding on to tension.
That's
60,
exactly
70
right.
years later,
Especially the
your
lower
body starts
back.
going, no.
It's the lower back. We put a lot of tension
Yeah,
in.
but you don't have to be. You can be
Yeah.
free of that, no
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah. And if you're somebody like me who loves sports, I pay attention to my body 10 times more than I used to,
Yeah.
because even before I go to play, I have to release tension.
Mhm.
When I come back, I definitely have to do it again.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you think you're not going to pay attention to your body and not suffer, you probably want to rethink that one because it's going to keep talking to you. But you can build a really good friendship with it. Maybe we'll do a podcast on that in the near future for sure.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Can you think of any other tips that you want to give them before we go? Because we're at our end here.
Yeah, we're right about it, our time. I think we've given folks a lot to chew on, a lot to work with. And, let us know. Let us know if you're having trouble getting back
Absolutely.
to we'll be happy to share, when anything we can, and we'll do more podcasts that may be helpful. So,
Absolutely. Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you. Love you. Bye.